Hi, and welcome back to the positive side with Larry Rifkin and Sharon Pannoni. How are you? Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we're going to talk about communicating with our children, teenagers, young adults. This is an area where, as parents, is probably as a child is becoming a teenager, probably the second most traumatic time in their lives, other than when the child leaves to go to college and walk away.
Yeah, and I'm going to
But
give
they're
the
changing.
different perspective because I don't have children.
Now, I have three.
I'm a great aunt, and my friends' kids say, but I'm also coming from the perspective of actually I was the teenager who went through dealing with it on a more difficult level, I think, than some. And I have great parents. Let me give a shout out to them. I have magnificent parents. I am so, so very blessed. But sometimes as parents, you see past it because they're your kids. And the reason that we felt the importance behind this discussion today is because we've had several people that we've had discussions with lately that have said just that. I didn't see it. And that happens. So we want to talk about it and see if we can give the perspectives of the parent, not the parent, and also hopefully help you to see how you can embrace this change without getting gray hair, and so on and so forth. So hopefully you get something out of this.
And she's right, and a lot of what she says, she's looking at it as a different perspective. I am the father of 3 teenage boys. So yeah, I come to it through a different perspective, and communicating with teenagers is not the easiest thing in the world. And I will say up front, I don't proclaim to have all the answers. Trust me, I definitely don't. I have 3 teenage boys, I know this. But I have come a little bit further, and I am dealing with them. It's and this is what this show is about. It's how we communicate with them. And the first thing that we need to understand is that there's a big change going on. They have been, up until this point, a little child in our house, always, wanting to share all their thoughts. We were the center of their attention. Now they're stepping into a new world, and there's growth, and they're coming into their own.
Now they're trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's actually a little, think back. It's a little frightening because when you're at that stage, you don't, as a teenager, you don't know where you're supposed to be either. You don't want to be mommy and daddy's little boy or little girl anymore, but yet you love your parents, but yet you want to start to separate yourself. And then you have all the different peer pressure. And now, I've got a few years behind me, and so doesn't Larry.
She's much older than I am.
But nowadays, the pressures are come from so many different areas. The school pressure that they're put under, the media pressure that they're put under, all of that too. And who am
and you know what? And I so often always agree with you. It's one of the reasons why you are my creative partner. But I don't agree with that statement, because I think all through time, even back to the cavemen, there was always that time of changing, of going into this. There were always challenges. Yes, we recognize them now with technology and the computer, but going back to the 1900s, they had challenges in 1800s and 1700s.
I agree with you. Okay, so maybe I'll rephrase a little bit. Maybe it's not, because let alone that the children are children in society, and I say are because I embrace them as well, even though I don't have my own. I have a deep connection to them. So it's not just the children. Back then, when you talk about, even going back to like our grandparents' age, there was more of a family environment. You sat down for dinner at the table. It's even as parents now, our lifestyles have changed because of the media and work and all of that. So there is a different dynamic in the family household now, and it makes it, I think, easier for us to look past.
Yeah, it can be. I still stand by that. Whatever time we live in, the challenges are there, and the challenges, whatever the challenges are, they're interchangeable. And what Sharon and I want to discuss with today is it doesn't matter which challenges are there. The fact that they just created electricity and the light bulb is there, or the internet, or whatever, it doesn't matter.
How do you keep the communication
Communications.
open?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and again, as a father of 3 teenage boys, I will tell you that this is important. And each child is different. They each have their own personalities, their own hot buttons. Their
Okay, let me ask you this. I was the middle. I'm one of 3.
as am I.
I had my sister, and then there was me, and there was my brother. And I will have to tell you that I would say I was the most difficult for my parents.
I'm the middle. I have an older sister. And I have a younger brother, and I was the most difficult for my parents.
Okay.
And I have 3 boys.
Yes, and so
I won't go there.
yeah. So I mean, they are all trying to find themselves, but I don't know, something about us middle children. We're not sure where
Absolutely.
we fit.
It's funny.
In the household too.
It's a funny thing that you say that. I have 3 boys, Joshua, Brandon, and Maxwell, and I have this little thing with Brandon where we anytime there's an issue, it goes middle child club, which means it's just between me and him, and we're the only ones who would understand it because we're both middle children, and we sit down. But each one of them, and actually that could be the role of another show, and I've done a study on that, on where you are in the placement of the birth order, on how it develops your personality. But this is true. But really today we're trying to take a general look on how do you communicate effectively with teenagers, again, now going through the biggest changes in their lives up until now.
Hormonal changes going on. They've got big decisions that they're coming into having to make for themselves.
Social with school.
And I think the pressures, the pressure that they have, we do it as adults. We have to, I think, look at them as adults, not in the sense of having an adult relationship of we're friends, because the parent, I still think, carries, it's so important to have the parent role. However, I think that there needs to be a shift in the type of respect in the relationship, because I think that parents sometimes get stuck on, I'm the parent and you need to respect me, and at that age, at the teenage age, that's a brick wall right there. And that's where I think some of the combating comes from. Have you experienced that, or am I speaking? I felt that's from the perspective of when I was 15 and 16.
Do you remember that long ago?
Oh, yeah. Those were very big changes for me.
I absolutely do. And again, I will tell you, going through it with each child is a different situation with each one. The respect issue is an issue. Funny, it's more of an issue with not all 3 of my children. Really, it's not. But yes, the one that it is an issue with, it is a major issue with it. I seem to battle, and I know, doing research for today's show and preparing for today's show, and being a parent, I sat down and said, okay, what tools, because we're both life coaches and we both fall back on our toolbox all the time, do I use in communicating with my children? And yes, I'm pretty good at it, but I tell you, as I told you in the beginning, I don't have all the answers. I think we all learn.
Do you ask past the superficial?
Always.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big thing. I think that parents, and again, this is just because we are so busy now. Everybody's so busy trying to do stuff. So we're just having a conversation here, and anything that's said is not to, play anything down of anybody because we don't know everybody's individual circumstances. But I think that parents get so busy that you might say, well, how's your day at school? Oh, it's, whatever. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation.
It's funny, we are so on the same page on so many things. That is absolutely true. And one of the points, because I came up with 10 points that I'll go over in this show, is not just to ask questions that can be answered in one word.
Right.
And to ask an open, not, did you have a good day? Yeah, okay, no. I'd like to say,
day.
What did you enjoy most
Yeah.
about that? It's a matter of, it's not probing, but you're trying to get a dialogue going. And when you ask closed-ended questions where especially a teenager, yeah, Dad, goodbye,
I know, but that's
you
the thing,
pull
is it's
it out.
superficial, and because they are changing, and they are changing, really at that age, there's a lot of things going on. They are changing, and to assume that everything's okay because they say is yes, I'm gonna say this is serious. This is serious. Do not assume with your children right now. This is the time where you want to open the communication up more, and you want to, find out who they are. Who are they becoming? How can you help them? How can you help them to embrace it? What are they dealing with?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with it. And as we were talking about, and what I found, again, coming from my experience and my perspective with my 3 boys, in effectively communicating with them, and I have some tools that I use. The first thing that we have to do is accept that there's a life change going on. They've gone from being the little kid in the house that all the attention's to becoming their own person. We as parents or as adults need to accept that. We need to include them in family discussions. We need to include them in everything that we do. We can't just discount them because they're teenagers. It doesn't matter. This is what we're going to do. No, include them. It's like the question that you asked me. Do you ask them in-depth questions? Yeah, you can't just do superficial, closed-end questions. You ask them questions to create a dialogue. And you do that through open-ended questions. We need to watch how we talk to them. We're no longer talking to them as little kids. They're not little kids anymore. They're actual people. They're actual men and women coming into it. One of the biggest things that I've learned this as a coach, how we listen is so important. We need to listen to them, to what they're saying and to what they're not saying. Listening is an art and really needs to be something that we worked on. Praise, when it comes to the kids and dealing with kids, praise goes so far. Tearing them down doesn't, and complaining doesn't. A little bit of praise goes a long way. I try not to. I'm not always successful. No nagging. Don't attack. Don't lecture. I know I have a problem with that. I can't imagine. But don't. These are their own people. I'll tell you something else that's very important that I found. Understand and accept their private time. It used to be when they went into their room and shut the door, my first reaction is, I'm going to take this door off the hinges and you won't be able to shut it. It's not the right way to do it. Respect that time. Just like adults, they have bad days and good days, and they have bad times, and they have times that they just need to be alone with their own thoughts. We as adults and as a parent, I'm going to take that door down. I have taken the door down in the past. Won't do that again. Accept their private time. Have faith. We spend our lives teaching our children, and we hope that they learn, and we have to have faith. You don't want to be on top of them for everything. You want them to make their own mistakes. It's so easy for us to jump in with our own experiences and our own advice, and we want to do that. But they've got to learn on their own. So allow that. I know it's hard. It's as It's very hard as a parent. I've been there. I've done that. I've made that mistake. And you just want to tell them. But they're not going to learn from you telling them. You need to let them do it on themselves. And then the number one thing I think on my list in dealing with teenagers and communicating, respect. Goes both ways. You know, you expect as a parent or as an adult that, you know, they're going to respect us. And we don't have to give the same respect back. It doesn't work that way. Respect, as one of my kids keeps telling me, is earned. It's not given.
Yeah, respect is, we all want respect. And it is something I think that when you're at that age that you don't quite get it. But you know you want it, if that makes any sense. It's like you want people to hear what you have to say, but you don't want to share everything with them. You want to make choices on your own, but you want to know that you're going to be okay if you make the wrong choice. And you don't want your parents to know that you're afraid that you're going to make the wrong choice. And so all of that ties into respect. So the things that I can share, because I've shared in a few other videos, I made some choices when I was at the age of 15 to 20 that took me down a pretty dark path. I was somebody who did not want to be in school. I couldn't wait to get out of school. I struggled with my grades, and I would have the teachers on me all the time, and my parents saying, if you tried, you would do better. And I was trying. Nobody got that I actually was trying. And so when you hear that over and over again and you are trying, you get to a point where you stop trying. You stop trying because it's like nobody's hearing me. Nobody is hearing me when I say I am trying. I don't get it, or whatever it is. And I was somebody who I say a lot of things. I still do. My mother still says, "Sharon, you say too much," because I do. I talk to a lot of people. So I met a lot of people, and in doing that, I met people that weren't necessarily on the best path, and they had influence over me. You want to know why? Because they were the ones that hurt me. They were the ones that hurt me. And it was like there was a part of me that just wanted to be heard and wanted to feel like I was respected and wanted to feel like I was part of something. And I found it in this group, and I grabbed onto that. And when you grab onto that and you go in that direction, you become more rebellious against, your family and other people that are not hearing you. So my best advice that I can put out there is, know your kids. Like, really want to know who they are. Don't you want to know who they are? Not how was your day at school, not, the superficial things. Like, who are you? What are you dreaming about? What do you want? What do you like right now? What don't you like right now? I mean, ask those questions and be honest with them in the sense of, if you're having a bad day, tell them, you know what, I didn't have the best day either. You don't have to get into all the details of it, but don't make it like your life is perfect, because that is pressure on them too. Well, what's wrong with me? That old what's wrong with me thing comes back in again. And if the door closes a lot, yes, you need to give them that time, but I'm going to tell you, you also need to pay attention. Don't just walk past that door. If they've got music going on, every once in a while talk to them about, hey, I heard the music going on or whatever. But don't all of a sudden to go get into that unconscious state where you just end up passing that door, because you don't know when something is going on behind that door, and that is part of being a parent. So it's not overstepping, it's not taking it off the hinges, it's being aware of what's going on in your old household. I'm going to share this, and again, I know my parents respect me, and I know they know how I feel about them, but my parents are very, very intelligent people, and they didn't see it. They didn't know. And it got to a point where I was at a dangerous point. And so I'm just telling you to be aware. It's so very important. It goes hand in hand with the respect thing at that age.
And I so understand all of that. And I'll agree with you, because you know what? Intelligence has nothing to do with it when you're a parent. Um, I remember the first day in college, and I was a psychology major, what I studied, and I remember Professor Susan was my first psych professor, and he was talking about dealing with our families, and he said, listen, what you're going to learn in here is going to work with a lot of people, and you're going to understand them, and it's going to all come into place, but not your family. It's true. When it's our parents, my father used to have a saying that used to say, you can't see the woods through the forest, or you can't see the trees through the
No,
forest.
I said this to you before. It's like, again, not having kids. I'd go to see my niece and nephew or whatever, and I maybe hadn't seen them for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. And I'd walk in and I'd see like this huge change in them, and I'd be like, oh my God, blah, blah. And my sister would look at me because she sees them every day. So it's like you look past it.
Absolutely, and that is,
Don't look past it.
I know.
Don't look past
I
it.
know. What caught me was you said, and I happen to kind of know your parents, and I understand that they're intelligent. They are. That has nothing to do with it when you're
Exactly.
dealing with a parent.
Exactly. But, there are people out there that will say, and you see it all the time, and you may be one of those people. You see something on the news, see something that happens, and there's a lot of it out there right now with the shootings, and there's just a lot of it out there. Bullying, there's stuff all over the TV right now. And people will sit back in their living rooms, and they'll say, the parents should have known. They should have known. I don't agree with that.
Me either.
It's not knowing, it's being aware, having conversation, wanting to know your child.
And your child at this point in their age, as we started this show, is going through so many changes, and we discussed and we listed many of them, but one of the ones that we didn't list, and we did say social changes, because now, rather than being in the home with the parents, they're now in school, they're now in the school. But when they get to a teenager, and I can only come from the perspective of boys.
Oh, here we go, folks.
They're
This is a whole nother show.
they're discovering girls.
Right?
They're discovering themselves. And for the first time, they're out there wondering, it's not that I want to play baseball with you, which is what it was for the past, 6 years or 8 years. Now all of a sudden, he's looking at you differently. So now that social dynamic comes into it, not just with the other stacks, but also in the same groups, because now they're in school and they're with a group of guys. And, it so happens, and I don't know why or how it happened, I hung out with a bunch of guys that like to play hockey. I don't know that I would have chosen that to have been my sport,
Yeah.
but it just happened.
But you were influenced to play it.
Oh, absolutely, because that group
Right.
did, and they were so cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be, and most of them were a little bit older than I was when I started playing, and I admired them. That ended up being my sport. I played ice hockey for years. But it's the group of people, it's that social aspect all of a sudden that they don't know how to handle. The reason they don't know how to handle it is because they've never been in that world before.
Right. And we're not, and this is an important thing. As parents, we talked about this. We can't tell them how to be in that situation. You can just share with them, this might come up or whatever. Just kind of put it out there that you kind of might have an idea of what you're talking about. But you can't say to them, I know because guess what? It may be a similar experience, but it's going to be their experience, just like it was your experience. Just like we can walk down the street at the same time. It's two totally different experiences, because what I'm perceiving and what I'm taking and what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing is mine alone. It will never be anybody else's. And yours alone, it will never be anybody else's. Now, what happens when we get into these groups, there's something that we're feeling that we're not finding somewhere else from our family or whatever. And for me, I got into this group, you got into a different group, but it's becoming a part of something other than the family unit, which is important because that's how we start to learn about things and go out and decide if we want to go this way or that way or whatever. First off, your child can't fail. Don't teach them that if you do that, it's wrong, this, that, or the other thing, or you're going to fail. Tell them, go and explore. Don't have to make any choices right now. The only choice that I suggest that you don't make is not making any choice at all. Go out, fall forward. Don't say you're a failure, this, that, or the other thing. Don't use that language. Empower them. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to hit brick walls. We all do.
It's funny that you put it this way because I realized as you were talking, though, that parenting or mentoring has a lot of the same characteristics as what I do as a life coach. I don't try to convince people. I don't try to push people in any. No, I try, and I hope that I'm successful. I don't know if I am or not. But I try to lead by example and let them see, because this happens to work for me and I'm pretty happy. Same thing with the parents.
Sharing a different perspective.
Yes. And same thing as being a parent.
That's why we need to keep coming back and seeing these videos. Because we're both coaches. We've both had experiences and nobody can do it alone.
No.
And I don't want to discount the parents here either, because you have a very difficult job. You have a difficult job of learning to let go of your child and embrace the adult that they are becoming, and respect that and recognize that when you butt heads,
and you're going to, and you're going to,
if you're not already, you're going to, that they love you, and it is not about you, it is about them, just like anything else. And that is where you need to be the adult. That is where you need to not, take it and be hurt by it and hold it against them. This is not the place for judgment. This is not the place for assuming. This is the place where love, love, love comes in. And tough love is also with yourself, not just with your children.
Absolutely. And I think to wrap this up, communicating with teenagers and communicating with young adults is not easy. It's almost an art form. We need to learn. We need to listen. We need to watch for signals.
And we want your input. We want your input on this, because this is
a big subject.
Big subject, and everybody's either been through it, going through it. We want you to share. Have you been through it? If you've got advice for people, come, let us know. Send us emails. Go onto our sites. Underneath the video here, put comments. And if you're dealing with something, send it in. We are life coaches, and we would be more than happy to read what it is. You can send it in anonymously, or just actually do a show on it for you. We would love to do that.
And as you see at the bottom of this screen is our website, www.amazinguniversetv.com. We welcome your comments. We welcome your suggestions. Please do send it in. And until next time.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
And just remember that even when you're going through this difficult situation with your child, there's what?
Always a positive side.